Welcome back to Typecast Heroes, where we believe typology can save the world. I'm Amanda Fulgeson.
And I'm Jessie Miller, and today we are finishing up our series on I just took the MBTI test, now what? So in the last couple of videos, we have done all of the letters in your MBTI code because we've talked about all of the cognitive functions. And warning, guys, this may trigger some of the socionics folks out there. I love you guys very much, but we're going to be talking about some very sensitive information. For some of you...
Sensitive for you.
Please don't know. I understand that some of you have a very differing opinion on this. We can talk about it. If you want to have a friendly discussion, I am on Reddit and on Discord. Come find me. I'm a Typecast Heroes. Okay. Now that's
on.
Now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and discuss a quick history of the MBTI for the regular people who don't know what the heck we are talking about, or I am talking about, because they live in regular people land where regular people don't spend hours on the internet talking about the perceiving versus judging letters. So the last letter in your MBTI code typically is considered perceiving versus judging, and that does not mean that you are judgmental.
No.
So I have had some people say that they thought that meant that they were a judgmental person, and it does not. So remember the history of the MBTI. So Carl Jung's psychology, again, there are different functions and different forces in your mind that helped us take in information and make decisions. He called the things that helped us take in information the perceiving functions, and the
which
ones...
is P.
Right, which is P. And the ones that helped us make decisions, judging functions, right? So Isabel Briggs-Myers made that test, which is the MBTI, the Myers-Briggs test, which she believed helped predict which functions you used most in your mind. As we said in the last video, the tests are a good place to start, but then you should really research so that you can discover your true type, or you can schedule an interview with us and we can work. We can work
with you.
We can work with you. And then you should stay tuned and watch all of our cognitive function videos so that you can learn all of the information and figure it out for yourself.
Specifically for the P versus J, if you have any hesitation about the test results that you've gotten or the type that you have received on any of these assessments, then go ahead and just shoot us a message. That's going to be your best bet. The P versus J is not, if you've watched our other videos, if you haven't, please go watch. It's going to make a lot more sense if you do. It's not as simple as the S versus N or the F versus T. This is something completely different. And if this letter is incorrect, and if you base your type on a mistyped J versus P, it will change your entire cognitive stack.
Right, and we've talked about this before, but the reason why that matters so much is, again, the proper language. So if you are following the research that we're doing, and if you don't know what research I'm talking about, go ahead and watch our first video, Welcome to Typecast Hero, or go over to our page on Facebook or on Reddit where we talk about the overview of the research. But if you want to listen to that podcast this summer, you need to understand all of the proper language to use, and you need to understand your type so you understand your part in it. So you really have to have a good foundation for all of those things. So that's why it's so crucial that you have your true type, or at least as close as possible. Because if the I versus the E, you actually have the same functions. It's not that big of a deal. But if you miss the P and the J, if your P and your J are like really close off.
For example, anyone who's watched our first two videos, I went over this just a little bit. I am an ENTP, but I have always tested as a few different types, but the main one that I consistently get is ENTJ. So, in your mind, you're thinking ENTJ versus ENTP, it's one letter off, not a big deal. When in fact, it's the hugest deal, because if I was an ENTJ, I would be using the exact opposite cognitive functions.
Right. And this is why, because again, a J at the end means you are a judger, which means you rely on a decision-making process first.
A T or an F first, thinking or feeling first.
Yeah. So it's like, and then
for extroverts.
Right. And so for a perceiver, if you have a P at the end, then that means you rely on taking in information first, again, for extroverts. So I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory. So when Isabel Briggs-Myers made the test, she believed that if you are a perceiver, if you had a P at the end, that you relied on an extroverted sensing function. So go watch our video on intuition versus sensing to learn about all of those functions if you haven't already. So for an extrovert, if you have a P at the end of your code, that means you have a perceiving information, or you have a perceiving function first. That means the primary way you interact with the world before you do anything else is you are taking in information from the external world.
What that means is that if you have an E at the start and a P at the end, then you are either leading with extroverted sensing or extroverted intuition.
So if you have a J at the end, then that means you are a judger, or you rely on a decision-making function first. So you'll have an extroverted decision-making function first. So that would be thinking, an extroverted thinking or extroverted feeling. Mm-hmm. Again, if you don't know what those are, go watch the video on thinking versus feeling. Now we're going to get tricky. Again, socionics people. I'm sorry. So the concept of perceiving, as Isabel Briggs Myers understood it, was that when you interacted with the world, it was an extroverted sensing function. So that meant even if you were an introverted person, even if you had an introverted function first, even if the first thing that you did when you interacted with the environment was something introverted, if the way that you took in the environment was an extroverted way, that meant you were a perceiver. So for instance, an ISFP, that's an introverted person, right? Mm-hmm. They lead with an introverted judging function. They lead with introverted feeling, how they feel about things. They interact with an environment. The first thing they do is actually stop, and they consult their own moral values and moral codes. That's the way that they go throughout life. However, when they take in information, it's an extroverted function. They look at what's happening immediately around them. So it's like the primary way they interact with the environment is through their own morals and values. It's an introverted function. But because it's a judging one, when they are perceiving information, that's an extroverted function, which is why they are still perceivers. Now, I understand, again, that's very controversial. A lot of people believe that that's a mistake, but it isn't a mistake. That is how she understood it, and that's how she intended it to be.
Again, if you have, going back to our example, if you have an E at the beginning and a P at the end, you are leading with sensing or intuition. If you have an E at the beginning, J at the end, you are leading with thinking or feeling. Mm-hmm. Introversion is just the opposite. So in terms of your letters, so if you have an I at the beginning and a P at the end, you'll be leading with thinking or feeling. I at the beginning, J at the end, you'll be leading with sensing or intuition. So just kind of flip-flop them. That's the easiest way if you're trying to just understand the letters. But what Jesse's explaining is the actual psychology that goes behind it.
Judgers have an introverted perceiving function. So they look within themselves for how they perceive information, which is why it takes them a little longer to react. So if you have a J at the end of the name, that's where the behavioral stereotypes come in. It's why it takes you a little longer to make decisions typically, but not always. You plan a little better for the future, typically because you perceive information by looking inside yourself for it. Then perceivers, because they are taking information by looking at the outside world and it's in real time, they tend to be a little bit more impulsive, not always, but usually, and they tend to react faster, and they usually have a harder time planning for the future because they are so based in the moment. Again, those are just trends. So that is what it is, basic definition of the J versus the P. All right, so that's it for J versus P. And like Amanda said at the beginning of the video, if your percentages are very close, you might want to look into the functions more yourself or come talk to us and we can help you work through your true type.
Or if you just you don't connect to the type that you got, chances are it's a P versus a J thing. Again, maybe it's thinking versus feeling. We typically don't see that that's as hard to figure out as S versus N or P versus J is. But again, just come talk to us and we're happy to help.
There is one more thing that we were going to cover. Sometimes people will tell us that they're a T versus an A. T versus an A is something that was added by the personality site that shall remain nameless. It was added as just a better way to understand yourself. It has nothing to do with Carl Jung psychology, though, so I can't really help you on it. I think that it's fine as far as personal growth. There's no problem with it whatsoever, but it is not connected to psychology, so it's not something that we are going to be covering.
And she's talking about, like, if you get the type that's like INTJ-A, like that -A, again, you can do with it what you want. But we don't know anything about that.
I don't do that. So, thank you for watching our videos and for completing this series. The next thing that we will be doing is we'll be covering the cognitive functions themselves. So, we'll be going into all of the 8 functions that were mentioned. So, please keep watching as we keep putting out these videos and giving you more information. Because
we appreciate all the support. It's so much fun. And again, if you guys ever have anything that you guys want us to cover, or your type that you want to hear more about, or a specific cognitive function that you want to hear more about, please let us know, and we're happy to reprioritize our videos for you. As of right now, the next video that we're planning on doing is extroverted intuition and introverted sensing, because they come together.
They are connected.
They are a pair. Surprise.
What a pair they are.
They're an interesting pair.
They are. Right.
All right. That's it.
Thank you for watching Typecast Heroes. We'll see you. You ready?
I'm ready. Can you do it with me just once?
No.
See you on the next Typecast Hero. Bye.
Bye.